Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Carver Center. My name is Anthony Baxter. I'm a Rye-Town Councilman and the chair of the Sustainability Committee. I'd like to thank you for joining us here tonight for the second of our speaker series. We had a speaker last May that talked about healthy landscapes, and tonight we're very excited to have Ron Kamen from Sustainable Westchester and EarthKind Energy, who's going to talk to us about electric vehicles. I'd like to especially thank Debbie Reisner from the town of Rye for all her logistical support in getting our space tonight and getting everything all set up. I hope you all brought your questions. Ron is an expert in the field, and we're very fortunate to have him with us. So, Ron, thanks for being here.
Thanks so much, Anthony.
Enjoy the evening.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you, Debbie and Anthony, especially for pulling this together, and the committee for making this happen. It's really a pleasure to be here tonight and to go through stuff. I tend to speak fast and relay a lot of information. We're taping this, which is great. I will also send you any of the slides, so don't feel like you have to take copious notes. If you don't understand and want to ask me something in the middle, that's okay. So please feel free to ask me questions as we go. There's a lot of information here. And at the end, though, as you'll see, there's always more to discover. So with that, let's just give you a little background on myself. I've been in clean energy pretty much all my career. I started out in energy policy and moved into actually applied projects and efficiency. And then I was in wind energy, setting up wind energy programs across the state. Then moved into solar and solar energy and clean energy on the generation side. And part of the reason I wound up in clean transportation, though, was because when you take a look at how are we going to deal with all the carbon issues, transportation has now become one of the key components that we need to deal with. And we'll talk about sort of the three stools of how do we deal with the carbon and the greenhouse gases in just a moment. So some background first on Sustainable Westchester. For those of you who don't know, it's pretty much all the municipalities in Westchester, 43 different municipalities. There's a couple that have yet to come in. Actually, one of them's kind of around here. But hopefully you guys will join it. Those outliers will come in soon. But the idea is to bring people together and to have joint sustainability efforts, right? And so pretty much I work for you guys, okay? So my job is to help you guys get to where you want to be on sustainability. That's what the whole Sustainable Westchester team is all about. And we're 43 municipalities. We pretty much have all the villages, cities, towns, and the county itself that are our members. You guys decide what we do and how we do it. And one of the first things that we did was set up what's called a community choice aggregation. And this is where people decide to purchase electricity altogether. So a community votes that they want to join the Community Choice Aggregation Program. Westchester Power is the name of that. These are some of the communities. The basic supply, 100% renewables, are in green, and then the yellow ones are the ones that haven't quite come on yet, but there's a couple of those that are moving on now. To give you a sense of the power of that, there's 100,000 customers in these communities that now purchase electricity altogether. By purchasing electricity altogether, we're able to get one big price, a big discount on those prices. So that has saved people over $10 million so far. 70% of those communities chose a clean and green option. They paid less for electricity, and they have a renewable energy supply now. So that's kind of the power when people come together and aggregate what we're doing. One of the other campaigns that you guys might have heard about is Solarize. And on the Solarize, it's a similar concept where communities apply to get a Solarize campaign going in their community, and by coming together, they get discounts. And those discounts have now resulted in over 5 million watts of solar in various different homes and residents and some small businesses throughout. And the Solarize campaign's going on all the time. You may also have heard now about something called community solar. And on the community solar, where normally you would think of solar on your house or on your workplace, community solar means that there's a solar plant, solar farm, someplace, and this particular one was actually on a business. This is one of the first ones in the county. And what it does is it lets you participate in solar without having to put it on your own home. So you get all the same benefits of discounts, 10% discount off a Con Ed rate. There's no upfront fees. You don't have to lay out any money. There's no penalties if you want to cancel. And so what happens is that you get to participate in a solar project and get financial savings as well as the environmental benefits. This is one of our other sustainable Westchester benefits. So why electric vehicles, EVs, okay? And let me just give you a couple of backgrounds. So, whoops. First, we spend as a state, all of us all together, about $19 billion a year in New York State. It's a tremendous amount of money we spend on fuel. Obviously, economically, that all is going out of the state. We're not producing our own oil here. There's 11 million cars and light-duty trucks registered in New York State, and it actually is the largest single source or combined source of climate pollution in the state. 34%, over a third of the greenhouse gases comes from transportation. Give you another reason why this is an important topic, to give you an idea of the savings. So if you took your normal, average, regular gas vehicle, getting 25 miles to the gallon, and you went 10,000 miles a year, it would use about 400 gallons of gas at $2.75 a gallon, which I think is cheap today, right, if I'm not mistaken. That winds up being $1,100 a year you spending just on fuel alone. If you're in the highest Con Ed territory, paying the highest electric rates possible, and you drove an electric vehicle, on the average they get about 4 miles to the kilowatt hour. Even at the highest rate, it would cost you $600, $625 a year, so there's a 40% savings in fuel, 43% savings in fuel. If you're part of Westchester Power, or you get community solar, you get another 5 or 10% savings on top of that. And then, of course, you also get the greenhouse gas reductions. So in terms of the environmental impacts, it's really significant. Another reason for looking at electric vehicles is the maintenance savings, because electric vehicles have no oil. If you get a pure electric vehicle, no oil, no transmission. And instead of 2,000 moving parts, which is what is in a regular gas vehicle, you have about 20. 2,000 to 20, much less maintenance, right? So pretty much you change the tires, you change the windshield wipers, you put some fluid into the windshield wipers, and that's about all you need to do with an electric vehicle. It's pretty incredible. And then you take a look and see what's happening, and you find that electric vehicles, just like, you know, our little phones that used to, this supercomputer that used to be several millions of dollars 20 years ago, right, to get this amount of computer power, that's what's happening with electric vehicles. The same sort of technology evolution and cost reductions is happening with electric vehicles, and what you're seeing is prices dropping 18% a year, and within the next few years, electric vehicles are going to be cheaper to buy and 10 times cheaper to maintain than an internal combustion engine. And then there's this little thing called performance, right? So, you know, some people like their vehicles to perform. That's what an American way is, all this gas stuff, right? And Tesla, you know, you may have heard of the Tesla. 0 to 60 miles per hour in 2.2 seconds. I mean, it's just incredible. And actually, some of the newer Teslas are going to come out and burn that one now too, which is pretty wild. But interestingly enough, especially for those youngins, did you know, you remember the Grand Prix we used to see with the James Bond and everything else when they go through the streets of Europe, right? The Grand Prix. Well, they now have something called the Grand Formula E Prix instead of Formula One. They're Formula electric vehicles, right? And they give you a sense of the speed that these vehicles can do. This is someone that's, yeah, who knows that guy? Leonardo DiCaprio, right? So he has a team that they put together, and they hold the land speed record for an electric vehicle, 340 miles an hour. And even though this is happening all over the world, it happens in New York City now, pretty much every year. It happened this past year. I'm hoping it's going to happen in 2019 too, for those who might be interested. Down in Brooklyn, they actually run these Formula E races all around Brooklyn. So it's a pretty amazing thing. If you get the chance to go, it's pretty exciting. But what you're really looking at is that we're seeing that electric vehicles are disrupting technology that's changing the whole basis of competition. So if with an electric vehicle, you're getting the performance of a Porsche, but at the price really of a Buick. And that's where we're going, and that's why it's so exciting for all of us. When you take a look around the world, what you see is that electric vehicles are just going up dramatically. So it took the world about 20 years to get to the first million electric vehicles. You know how long it took after we hit 1 million to get to 2 million? 18 months. From 2 million to 3 million? We're on this exponential curve, right? And part of it is because prices are coming down, part of it because people are waking up to the environmental environmental stuff, part of it is because of the maintenance savings, and there's a whole bunch of reasons why everybody does this, but the reality is this is where the future is headed, this is what's happening now. And to give you a sense of this, this is the New York Auto Show, which is not renowned for their environmental sustainability in general. Their auto dealers are not really in that space generally, right? But at this year's Auto Show, 2018, they had a whole section just cut out for electric vehicles, with all these different electric vehicles and all the pricing and all the discounts and all the rebates. And to give you a sense, we started off first looking at municipal fleets. And the reason for that is because we feel like our municipalities can lead, for example, and we were looking at how, you know, with a Nissan Leaf or Chevy Bolt or Toyota Prius Prime, we have different contracts that we're able to help the municipalities get that help them reduce their costs. And believe it or not, there's even now a Ford Pursuit hybrid responder, which is kind of a hybrid. It's not a plug-in hybrid, although there will be a version that gets 38 miles to the gallon versus 18. So on every level of, almost every level of municipal involvement on sedan types of things, including the police, there's now options. And by letting the municipalities come together, there are now discounts that are available to them. And then one of the things we're able to do is leverage that then to get a discount, in particular on the Nissan Leaf, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But that gets 150 miles to a charge, and there's $14,500 in cash and tax savings that are possible with that particular vehicle. I'll talk about that in a little bit. Part of what's driving it is the state has really had a great program. So there's now dealers, and you can find out which dealers by going to the NYSERDA website that offer these discounts, and the discounts come right off the top. So you don't have to apply for anything, you just go in, and if you have an electric vehicle that qualifies under this program, what happens is that you get this discount, and it comes right off the fee that you have to pay for the vehicle. And to give you a sense, there's 40 different models that have all these applications. They have different versions of electric range, they have different MSRPs, but pretty much you'll see every manufacturer is there. And to give you an idea of a couple of them, you know, everyone from Volkswagen and Ford to the Kia and Tesla and the Chevy Bolt, and then I mentioned the Leaf. So this Leaf deal is pretty sweet. It starts out at $33,000 is the MSRP. We have a discount for anybody in Westchester of $5,000 that we negotiated with Nissan, which is pretty good. New York State gives you $2,000 off too, so that's $7,000 right off the top. And then when you file your federal income taxes, you get $7,500 back as well when you file your taxes, which is not a bad deal. So $14,000 in total discounts. That brings the price down to under $20,000 for a new car that goes 150 miles on a charge. And we'll talk about that in a minute. Not only that, the other nice thing is with Nissan, you get 2 years of free charging at public charging stations. And with this particular deal at Nissan New Rochelle, they also throw in a free home charging station. We'll talk about that in a second and some of your options there too. And then there's a kind of mid-range. Most of us have heard of hybrid electric cars, right? So now there's a plug-in hybrid electric car. And in a plug-in hybrid electric car, depending on the particular technology, you go a certain amount of miles on the electric, and then it kicks into gas. So we'll talk about why that's important a little bit, but to give you a sense, you know, Toyota Prius gets 25 miles on electric range, then it kicks into gas. All the Fords, Mitsubishis, and then the Chevy Bolt goes 50 miles on the electric, and then it kicks into gas. So if you do, as most people do, less than 30 miles in a day, an all-electric vehicle is totally great, especially if you have 2 cars in your family, and one is gas that you're going to take on trips, and the other one's just for local. But in addition, if you just have 1 car and you need to have something that sometimes when you go, you don't want to have to worry about electric charge, these plug-in hybrids are a great option. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a little while. One of the things that we're launching in January that we're about to come out with started in Massachusetts. It's called Drive Green. And what they did and what we're going to be doing in January is we're going to all the different dealers that offer electric vehicles. We're going to have one website where there'll be a car comparison. It'll talk about how available the vehicle is, what the trims are, the range per charge, whether it's an all-electric or a hybrid, how long it takes to charge, and then what the discounts are for every dealer that offers these throughout the county. So as many dealers as we can get to participate, whether it's Chevy or Nissan, BMW, Kia, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We want to offer this whole platform so that everybody has the opportunity, no matter what kind of brand they like, no matter which kind of vehicle they prefer, they'll have the opportunity now to get these discounts and to know and to see and compare and be able to have a transparent way of knowing exactly what's going on. So this is hopefully going to launch right around January. We're finalizing the paperwork tomorrow. And then, if you do get one of these electric cars, and you decide that, you know what, all I gotta do is plug it in at night, it's a great thing. One of the things that everyone gets concerned about is if you plug it in during the day, during the summer, when rates are very high and there's not that much electricity. You can edit that, right? If you plug it in during the day, during the summer, sometimes it's not good for the electric grid, but by plugging in at night, what Con Ed will do is they'll actually pay you to charge at night. They'll pay you up to $500 a year to plug your car in at night and let it charge at night. Okay, and it's pretty easy to do. You get $150 for signing up. You get so much dollars per month per kilowatt hour for charging off peak from midnight to 8 o'clock. You can put on a timer. You can do it with the car, put on a timer. And as long as you avoid the summer peak between 2 and 6 o'clock, you start maxing out your benefits. And again, it could add up to $500 a year, which pretty much pays for all your electric. So you can pretty much drive for free, which is a big deal. Yes, ma'am.
Can you charge the car on a timer? Otherwise I'd have to get out of bed to go and
Yeah,
plug
no,
it
you
in at
definitely
night.
put on a timer, absolutely. Most of the cars have the ability so that the timer.
You can
just
program the car.
Oh, okay.
Program it right in the car, or you put it on a timer, and, whichever is easiest for you. Great question, yeah, thank you. And then to give you a sense of New York State electric vehicles, this is a chart the state publishes now. Westchester is actually number 3 in counties in the total number of electric vehicles. And when you look per capita, we're actually number 2. And to give you a sense, the state publishes, this is not an all-inclusive list, and there's some communities that have zip codes that are kind of in one community, kind of in another. But one of the things we're doing is we're using this public place to start having communities see both how everybody's doing and to start competing a little bit with each other. And right now, Scarsdale, Yonkers, White Plains, Rye City, and Larchmont are leading with the numbers. But actually Greenberg and a couple others, zip codes are kind of mixed in. But this is a nice place just if you guys want to see how everybody's doing. There's almost 3,000 electric vehicles in the county right now. Our goal is to triple this in the next couple of years. And again, we'll see exponential growth. And then there's charging. Okay, so most people always ask about charging. And the interesting thing is that most electric vehicles can go and plug into just a regular electric socket. 110 volt, just plug it in, and it's a slow charge. You'll only get 2 to 5 miles out of it per hour, but if you plug it in from 12 at night till 8 in the morning, 8 hours, that's 16 to 40 miles, depending on your electric vehicle. And how many people drive less than 30 miles in a day? Most days. Right? So for most people, it's a really good option, just a level 1 charger. Level 2 charger is 240 volts, 220 volts, and that's the same really as your electric stove or your electric dryer. So most people have 220 volts to 40 volts, depending upon how you look at it at their house, and that is another option because under the 220, 240 volt, you get 10 to 20 miles per hour of charge. So if you're doing 50 or 100 miles now in a day, you can do a 220 volt and you're absolutely covered with just the electric one. And then this fast charging is what everybody thinks about. This is kind of the gas station model, right? Where you go out and you plug in to a fast charger out like you would in a gas station. That's what everyone thinks that they need. Most of the time, most of us don't need that. We just need is just a regular socket or even a 220 volt socket. Either one of those would do the vast majority of our charging. But when you're on the road, if you're traveling someplace, these DC fast chargers are what we need. And we'll talk about that in just a second because in Westchester, people don't know, but there's actually already over 100 charging stations scattered around the county. We're getting more and more every day. Different communities are installing them. Kind of Rye is putting one in, right? In which park? Crawford, right?
Carver Park.
Crawford Park, right? And then, right now, there's 9 DC fast chargers. But we want to get fast chargers all around the county so that no matter where you are, within a few minutes drive, you can go get a DC fast charge. It gives you 80% of the charge in 20 minutes.
There's a juice, if you go to the Marriott Courtyard, there's a line of DC fast charge, you want to check it out.
There we go, right in the town of Rye, so in the Marriott, right? So a great deal, and that just started, we actually got to do something with that. So again, 90% of most people's trips are less than 30 miles, right? So when you think about where you go most days, you go out to the store, you go to school, you go to work, how far do you go? 90% of every American on the average's trips are less than 30 miles. Most plug-in electric vehicles go over 100 miles on a charge. So for instance, this is at Mount Kisco, whoops, these are the charging stations in Mount Kisco, right? There's 6 different stations, so it's like, oh, I got an electric vehicle, where am I gonna charge my electric vehicle? What do I do? Where do I go? Well, you know, if you live in a single-family residence, you just plug it in at home, and you don't have to worry about those 6 charging stations, right? Because you just plug it in at home every night. Plug it in at night, go out, do your trips, come back, never go to a gas station again. In Westchester County, of the 340,000 homes, half of them are single family. Most of them have 2 vehicles. 1 vehicle most of the time is just going local. Most of the time, 2 of them are mostly going local. But the reality is almost everybody can use a electric vehicle for at least one of those 2 vehicles. When you take a look at the rest of the county, which are multifamily units, okay, so now we've got a little different issue. But interestingly enough, what the state has done now is there are grants available for workplaces, multifamily, and for the public, and that $8,000 grant gets you a 2-port level 2, which is good again for most people's charging. So if you're in a multifamily building and you've got a parking garage, or you're near a public parking garage, there's a grant now that'll cover the cost of equipment, and the only cost you have to pay is the labor. If you have somebody who'll do the labor for you, now you have a deal where you can get an electric charging station really pretty inexpensively. The other opportunity that's out there now is the shared economy, right? So people heard about the shared economy, right? And how the younger generation is now moving towards, hey, you know what? I don't know that I necessarily need a car just for me all the time, just for myself. I just want to hop in a vehicle when I need it and leave it, and not have to pay for it, because most of the time I don't use it. So why do I want to pay the gas? Why do I want to pay for the maintenance? Why do I want to pay for anything? So the shared economy. And we're teamed up now with Sustainable Westchester with these guys, Green Spot. And what Green Spot is looking for is they provide free charging infrastructure, and they set up a rideshare system. So they are looking for retail, residential, multifamily, and commuter lots, where they'll put 6 different spaces. In those 6 different spaces, 2 of them will just be available electric chargers for anybody, but 4 of those will be electric vehicles that people can go, rent for a couple of hours, rent for a day, but basically it's kind of a car share type of situation, a rental situation, where they'll put in the free infrastructure, so a nice opportunity for many communities. And then, whoops, just to give you a sense of what's coming, electric vans, a few municipalities are looking at vans, they're coming, there's some grants there, same with these pickup trucks that are now coming. There's also garbage refuse trucks, longer range vehicles that are happening all over the place, they're coming down in cost, they're going further, they're doing more. And then there's these electric buses. In Shenzhen, China, there are now 16,000 electric buses that they did in one city. That number of electric buses are more than all the buses in New York City, Philadelphia, Chicago, Los Angeles, and Toronto combined. So when we take a look at where can we go and who's doing what and what the opportunities are in Westchester, New York City, the reality is that we can take some examples from China and see that that electric buses are really an option. And then there's electric school buses, right? So there's more school buses in Westchester than there are regular mass transit buses, right? Across the country, there's actually 500,000 buses. I was blown away to find $3.2 billion worth of diesel fuel these buses or school buses consume, which is a massive amount of cost. And as it says, carcinogen-laden diesel. Bluebird, which is a major bus company, now makes an all-electric bus, as does Lyon out of Quebec. And interestingly enough is that one of the things you can do with this is not only have buses that move kids that are run by electric, but if you take those electric school buses, they're really giant batteries that sit in parking lots most of the time doing nothing, 18 hours a day, right? They go out in the morning, they get the kids, they go out in the afternoon, they get the kids. The rest of the time, they're just sitting there, right? And they have these huge, if you have electric, they're huge batteries. And we're kind of just testing right now in White Plains with 5 different electric buses, is using those to provide emergency battery backup when people need them. Let's say the grid goes down. Hey, I got an electric bus. I'll use that as my batteries for running the school or the community center or whatever else. How you doing?
Hi.
Hi. Yeah, no worries. You may want to slide over just a little bit because they're recording that, and they're going to be in there. So we're actually almost at the end of the presentation, but that's okay. You'll catch up to it. No worries. So Kamen is doing this in White Plains. We're looking to do more and more school buses around the state. There's grant programs that are coming out, so those of you that are in schools or involved with schools, it's an opportunity that's coming. Same sort of economic opportunity. For those who want to experience a ride and drive with multiple electric vehicles on Thursday, October 24th. I think it's Thursday, either Wednesday or Thursday. Sorry about that, it should say there. Down at Purchase College, which is not too far.
Wednesday.
It's a Wednesday, sorry. On Wednesday, October 24th, from 11 to 3 at Purchase College. If you go into the west lot, there'll be a bunch of different electric vehicles. You can take a ride in them, get to talk to various different entities about it from 11 to 3 on Wednesday the 24th. On Saturday, October 27th, those who are into Halloween at Nissan New Rochelle, they're doing a Halloween theme. They'll have a DJ, they'll get free barbecue, there's giveaways, there's a Ferris wheel that'll be there, so all sorts of fun from 12 noon to 6 o'clock. And then we're also doing this high school electric vehicle video contest. And anybody that has school interest or in a school or have kids or whatever else, basically what we're doing is we're asking kids to do a 2 to 4 minute video, and we're having all the kids compete, and the winner will get $1,500 as a scholarship fund. So we think that that'll get both social, they're ranked on environmental, on economics, on health and air impact, and also on social media. So there's a range of different opportunities for the kids to get involved. And from what we saw with recycling is when the kids start telling their parents, hey, how come we don't have an electric car? And they start showing these videos, we think that's going to get a big range of excitement and start things to another level. So we have 3 goals right now with this program. 1, an EV in every garage. If you've got 2 cars, one of those cars should be an electric vehicle because most of the time it's just going local. So you can plug it in at night, go, come back, don't have to worry about oil, don't have to worry about transmission fluid, don't have to worry about going to the gas station. You just go out, use an electric vehicle. If you've got a house, a single family residence, and you have a garage, or even not a garage, but you can plug in, everybody should have one. Second, we're looking into municipal fleets. Municipal fleets can save money with these technologies. Total cost of ownership on some of the sedans is dramatically less than having a gas vehicle. And by doing the municipal fleets, the municipalities lead by example, which is really great. And then third, coordinate plans for charging infrastructure. I showed you those 100 different charging stations scattered around. Most of those are level 2. Looking at the DC fast chargers, right now there's only 9 in the county. We want to get a whole range more so that no matter where you are, if you need a charge, in 20 minutes you can get 80% of your car powered up with a DC fast charger. That's what we want to have all throughout. That's the presentation. So. Questions, please. Yes, sir.
Are there gauges inside these cars?
Sure.
So you have an idea?
Yep, how many miles you can go, and yep, indeed, exactly.
Does it warn you, like it's time to charge up?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. When you get too low, it starts beeping at you, just like absolutely. So, you know, again, so the range, the opportunity, it's all electric, right? So I mean, we're going to all electric, nice option. And then there's these plug-in electric hybrids.
Yeah.
Gas
Are they also working on a solar car?
What happens is, the solar stuff is coming. There's a bunch of people who've been working on it. It makes a lot of sense. The challenge is the car's area doesn't have, you don't usually have that much area, so the amount of wattage you can get is kind of minimal. But saying that, nonetheless, it's like, why don't you just use it? If it's sitting there on a day, all day long, why don't you just let the sun charge it up?
Yeah.
Makes total sense, absolutely. What some people do too, clearly if you got solar on your house, hey, that's it, right? If you've got a solar system on your house that charges your car, you're solar powered from your house. If you participate in this community solar programs, same sort of idea. You get that electricity now that comes from the solar that's cheaper than regular electricity, so you can use that power from the sun to also power your house.
Thank you.
Those are different ways of doing it. Other questions? Yes, ma'am.
I often have to carpool like 5 kids in my car, and
Yep.
I've been looking at EVs and electric hybrid, and most of the models I see, I can't find one that, and I know you're not in the business of recommending particular models, but are there options for someone who has that requirement?
Yeah, it's great.
Pacifica, I think.
Yeah, so Chrysler has the Pacifica, which has a plug-in hybrid piece, so it's definitely a bigger vehicle. they're not making as many of those as you would like, but I think what we're gonna see is over time, as more and more people like you are looking at them and demanding them, we're gonna see more and more manufacturers coming in on them. And again, right now, there's 40 different models of electric vehicles that are out there. Some have more room than others, but yeah, it's not a be-all and end-all for everything, and definitely many of them are on the smaller side, so you're absolutely right. But I do think that as more and more people start to say, you know what, this is what I really want, you're gonna see more and more options coming into the market, so, great question. Yes,
For public charging, do you pay for that?
oh, great question, so it depends on where you go.
Repeat the
Okay.
question.
So, the question is, for public charging, because you're so spoken, for public charging, do you pay for that? Great question. So in some places you do, some places it's free, some places it's free for a little while. So what many communities do, in particular in retail areas, is they'll have the first couple of hours be free, so that they attract people there, they'll spend their money in the stores, and then if they're there for a long period of time, then they pay. It really varies, you have to look. So it's everything from totally free, to free for a little while, to you pay for the charges. The one nice thing with that Leaf, I'll tell you, that Nissan did was that 2 years of free charging, so pretty much wherever you go, you just take this little card, and if it's a networked charger, it's free, which is great, so in that case, it's free for everybody.
How does it compare to paying for a gallon of gas?
Great question again, how does it compare to pay for a gallon of gas? So, if you recall, let's just go back to this for a second. Where was that particular slide? Sorry, there it is. Alright, so if you have a regular gas vehicle that gets 25 miles to the gallon, at $2.75 a gallon for 10,000 miles a year, that's, you know, kind of what many people do, sometimes it's more or less depending on you're driving, but that 25 miles a gallon, that's 400 gallons, at $2.75, that's $1,100. If you now pay $3 or more, it's a little bit more. Even in the Con Ed highest rate area, at 25 cents a kilowatt hour, many people pay less than that right now, depending upon your particular bill. That's $625 a year to go the same number of miles, so you get a 40% savings.
But
So,
I'm assuming that a public charging station would charge more than probably the
yeah,
rate I
most
have
don't
at my
usually
house.
charge more than 25 cents a kilowatt hour.
Oh, okay.
Almost everybody that I've seen so far. Sometimes you pay per hour, sometimes it's free, sometimes you pay per hour, sometimes you pay per kilowatt hour. When you pay per kilowatt hour, I've never seen anyone charge more than 25 cents a kilowatt hour yet.
Yeah, and also it depends on the behavior. I mean, I had 6 EVs so far. The last is the Bolt in the parking lot here. 95% of the time, you're not gonna charge outside your home.
Right.
95% of the time. For the 5% of the time you need to charge, when I go to Massachusetts, I went to Vermont skiing, I charge on the way, and it costs you $10 maximum for a charge for 180 miles, but you're happy to pay them, and it's even less than in the equivalent gas. So at the end,
How long, when you charge on the way, when you drive to Massachusetts, how long do you plan to stop?
well,
And charge.
my test drive to Vermont was a fun one. So I went to a DC fast charge, that one on the right there, the 50 kilowatt, and it takes 40 minutes to go from 20 to 80%. It's more, I don't want to go into technical here, but that's basically what you're doing when you stop at the DC fast charge, you go for 20 to 80. And 80% stop, because it doesn't matter how long you're staying, you better go for the next station. So, and I stopped a couple times on the way up and 1 time on the way down, because it's a mountain. You reach in on the way down, so, and it took me 40 minutes. In 40 minutes, I just go shop around the place, and that's where they probably, you know, we went to first to Dunkin' Donuts. Yeah, stopped at Dunkin' Donuts. Then we went up to Bennington, we stopped, we shopped around the place. Actually, you stop, you can actually take your time. I anticipate some time. It's in the winter, we had the skis, we had four guys, the trunk was full, fully loaded car, and it made it up there without any problem.
So, Michelle's point is very well taken, right? Most of the time you charge at home, right? You just plug it in at night, that's it, sitting there, it gets charged up, and then you go. If you can't charge at home, the other second place would be at your workplace, right? So if there's a charger at your workplace, and again, there's now these grants, so anybody in Westchester that has a workplace that thinks that they might want to have an electric vehicle charging station, pretty much it pays for the equipment, it's $8,000 worth of grant. So then you just go to work and you charge it at work, right? So then in that case, that's kind of another nice option beyond the public chargers.
I have a couple of questions for you.
Yes, sir.
Sorry.
Please, that's okay, don't
I'm
be
getting
sorry, that's what we're here
interested in
for.
Can you overcharge?
No, it's the engine,
That's one.
the system stopped. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Second question, when you're traveling at night and you're
Uh-huh.
using the headlights and you're using the heater or the
Uh-huh.
air conditioning, does it burn more electric? You're using it more
That's
up?
great. So per kilowatt hour,
Yes.
right? So you're burning some. The lights are really minimal because most of them are LED, like
Okay.
diodes. It tastes like almost nothing. So
But
the light,
air
the
conditioning
light
or
impact is really
heaters?
minimal. Air conditioning definitely has an impact, but with air conditioning, right? Let's say it's 90 or 100 degrees out, right? You want to get down to comfortable. Let's say it's 70, so you're going from 90 down to 70, 20 degrees, or even if it's 100 down to 70, it's 30 degrees, right? So air conditioning definitely has somewhat of an impact, but it's pretty small. The real place that you do have to be concerned is when it's really cold out and your vehicle's been sitting there, and if you didn't leave it plugged in, if it's plugged in, it's doing fine. One thing that people do is they plug it in, and then when it's heating time, they let the car heat up with the plug before they go out, so they're not draining the battery, they're just using the electric to heat it up, which is good. When you're heating it, that's definitely potentially some place that you could lose 20 to 30% of your charge from the heating. Because you're going from 30 to 70, so now you got 40 degrees, or from 0 to 70, you got 70 degrees, or however cold it is out, right? So you got that big heating bump, and that's definitely a place where you will lose some miles. But again, if you have a vehicle that's doing 150 miles on a charge, even if you lost half of it and you got down to 75 miles, and you're only driving 30 miles in the day, you got twice as much range as you need, right? So really you gotta take a look at your patterns. Again, most people drive less than 30 miles in a day. They're going from here to work, here to school, here to the train station, and back. So that kind of, if you're doing less than 30 miles a day, electric vehicle is a great option.
What about idling in traffic?
Yeah, no, minimal. No, there's no idling, right? So it's like,
Well,
all you gotta
I
do is
mean-
you got the radio on, you got the fan on, you got the AC or the heater on, and that's a great question.
Okay.
But you know, it is an interesting point though, because in New York City, right, with the buses, we were talking to the New York City folks about doing electric buses, right? So in New York City, it's actually not the miles per kilowatt hour that they worry about, it's the kilowatt hours per hour because of the heating and the cooling and
Yeah.
everything else. So, because most of the time, they're only going a few miles, right? I mean, they're not even going that far, but it's all that extra stuff. But still, it's 20 kilowatt hours per hour is what they look at on a big New York City bus, right? So 20 kilowatt hours an hour is kind of a lot, but you know, it's not that much when you look at these batteries that have hundreds of kilowatt hours worth of
That's-
power in them. So it's all kind of relative, but great question.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Yes?
What is the life cycle of an electric car, and what is the post-market look like for
Great.
selling used cars?
Excellent question. So first, the life cycle is they're all warranted for almost across the board 8 years, 100,000 miles for everything on the batteries, and the electric components, because they want people to get over that kind of initial, oh, how long is it going to last and everything else. I know somebody who's got a Volt that's got 250,000 miles on it now and hasn't had any sort of issues whatsoever. So just to give you some sense of the potential opportunities, because again, less maintenance, right? So they go a long way. Most people would say that electric vehicle is going to outlast a gas vehicle by a long period of time, but there's not been that many of them for that long, so that's kind of a presumption that's there. But, you know, it seems to be a pretty good presumption, because again, you don't have all these 2,000 moving parts that can break, you got only about 20. And then, in terms of your other question, the secondary market is really kind of interesting, because there hasn't been that many vehicles on the road for that long that there is that much of a secondary market. So what you find is that some of the manufacturers who've done leases, you can get a really good deal on a used electric vehicle right now. I think what we're gonna see is the same sort of thing that we see with regular cars, is that those cars that get better and better reputation and go further and further are gonna have more and more higher ones. But actually, a secondary, getting a used electric vehicle right now, you can get some really sweet deals. If you have one, you're trying to sell it on the other side, it's not quite as good as if you have, a car that most people are more familiar with.
Is an old battery a problem?
So great question about the batteries. So batteries are, performance, right? So again, the kind of performance that we were looking at, with, these things are made to be able to perform. So what happens with an electric vehicle's battery is at some point 8 to 15 years, depending upon how you drive and how far you go and where you live and all like that. But at some point, that battery won't be as good for driving but yet it still has good useful life. So there's this whole new secondary market that's developing to take used car batteries and use them as batteries for different types of battery storage capabilities for the utility grids or for battery backup, for UPS systems and everything else. And that's a whole market that's really coming to bear. It's really quite interesting. So, great questions. I think there was a question here and then one more in the back. She answered? She asked the question? Okay. Yes,
No.
sir, in the back again.
I gotta participate.
It's no worries, it's great, man. That's what we want. It keeps things
I'm
interesting.
assuming
Yes.
if the car has a problem,
Uh-huh.
you'd have to take it back to the dealership where their mechanics are trained to fix it. You can't just take it to a normal
Right.
Firestone or,
there's
you know
not
what I
so
mean?
many- There's not as many people
That's what I-
servicing electric vehicles as there are other vehicles. So you are right. If you do have that type of problem, most likely you will have to take it back to a dealer.
And if you're traveling, if you would have to go to a place in a different state, they would honor
Yeah, if you have a warranty,
a
absolutely.
warranty?
For sure.
Okay,
Yeah, for sure.
they won't bother you.
No, it's not. It's great. It's wonderful.
They have like
It's great.
apples, they have geniuses.
That's
Yeah,
it.
those are people that are
Genius.
really good, so. And a lot of it actually, can be done, so for instance, when there's a recall on electric vehicles, a lot of times it's just like a software thing that they update, they do it down, it's like, so you don't even have to bring it in because it's all software related in one, so. Yes?
So let's go back to all of the rebates that are
Uh-huh.
available to help support people who buy electric vehicles.
Yeah.
Are those, can they be applied to used
No.
electric vehicles?
No.
It always has to be,
Sorry.
all
The
that money
incentives-
back is for new.
The incentives are for new vehicles, yes, sorry about that. So
If you
again, with-
buy them or
But-
lease them?
Right, so, but the thing is that once you exhausted that first timer, your purchase price is lowered by that amount already. So let's say I leased 6 vehicles. So you have by definition a lower lease because the repurchase price is lowered by tax effect. Because the lessor is grabbing that tax and goes and puts that on his tax return. So the secondary market would have already discounted that car for that particular tax effect.
yeah, so on the new vehicles, the NYSERDA, New York State Instant Rebate comes off the top, right? So if you're going to buy a used vehicle, well, you're not gonna get that again, but you've already paid less because you didn't pay that up front because of that piece. Our discount is just our discount, the tax credit, again, if somebody else is taking the tax credit, okay, they, may decide to charge you whatever, but a leasing company who took the tax credit then is gonna discount the vehicle because they've already taken the tax credit, so yeah, you don't get the same incentives, but the secondary market is usually cheaper, so, great questions.
And you get all those incentives whether you buy or lease, or the lease, it's passed on to you through
Yeah,
the lease?
so great question. So if you buy, you get all these incentives. If you lease, then the question becomes which incentives are applicable, right? So on this particular Nissan Leaf, you still get the $2,000 piece gets built into your lease payment, so it comes off the top. So when they figure out your lease, how much you're gonna pay, that's already off the top. They're also giving you some amount of the credit on the tax credit, because the leasing company's taking the tax credit, you're not taking it. You're getting a lower monthly price, but they're taking the tax credit, okay? That $5,000 discount though, no, that doesn't apply to the lease, unfortunately. Nissan was like, we wanna sell these, if you wanna lease, fine, lease, but they don't give you that discount over the lease.
And that's only with Nissan?
That's
for
with Nissan, but they're all kind of pretty much
The
like that.
$5,000?
The $5,000 is right now for Nissan.
Just Nissan's?
Just
only.
Nissan, but, let's see, yeah, there it is. what we're doing is, I missed this part, but what we're doing is what Massachusetts did, is we teamed up with these guys out of Massachusetts, and we're gonna be going to all the dealers throughout Westchester that offer electric vehicles, and every month, we're gonna ask them for what's their price, what's their MSRP, what's the discount they're willing to offer, what's their lease pricing, and what we wanna do is have this be an opportunity for consumers to have transparency about price and choices, and have pretty much every manufacturer up here. And right now, we had this great deal on the Nissan Leaf, it was wonderful, we had a deal for a while on a BMW, which was okay, but what we really wanna do is get all these guys competing for your business. If you don't know any dealers, let me know too, because it's always good to have a relationship rather than walking into cold to some dealers. And those of you that are looking to buy, if you have a particular car that you're looking to buy, if you want to talk to me, it would be great, because I'd love to go down there with you and both get them interested, because you're a purchaser, as well as talk with them about this program, as well as we're looking for the dealers to sponsor the high school program, right, this high school contest that we're doing. And by doing that, they get ride and drives with the kids. So part of the kids get ranked, they have to do one of the video things. We're doing a high school video contest where kids are doing, they compete with videos. And one of the things they gotta do is they gotta take a ride and drive in an electric vehicle. They could do it with a friend, they could do it with family, or they could do it with a dealer and set up like a little thing for, at the dealership or elsewhere where they organize. But they have to have, the part of the video's gotta be them taking a ride in an electric vehicle, and that be part of the video. So we want dealers to participate, because first they get some exposure, second they get to potentially sell to the families. So if you're going out, I'd love to help you go out, so please get me in touch, and I'll also make sure you get a good deal, so it'll be very helpful. Yes, ma'am?
Are there any studies on any adverse health effects from exposure to the battery?
Yeah, thank you very much. So are there any health effects from the battery? No, there's a lot of studies on the health effects from internal combustion engines and what those do to people, for sure. The battery themselves, you know, there is, like anything else, there's a life cycle, right? So it's lithium mining, so there's gotta be the mining of the lithium, so you gotta deal with that. There's other components that are in there, they're both metal and plastic and everything else, so there's that piece. But compared to an internal combustion engine, dramatically less impact on the environment, dramatically better health impacts. The batteries themselves, now there's not really any, you know, any studies on, we talked about maybe electromagnetic fields or something, yeah, so I haven't seen any studies about it. It's a great question. My gut sense is it's not any more than the lights or than our whole electric system around us, but it's, you know, it's worth thinking about. I would say though that knowing what I know about internal combustion engine and those health impacts on the respiratory system, on the heart, on everything else, you know, it's definitely a better step forward, but it's a great question. Thank you. Is that it?
I think that's it.
Hey.
So, Ron, just on behalf of everybody, I want to thank you for being here tonight and providing this information. I think Ron's with Sustainable Westchester. I'm sure you'll make this available for all of us. We're going to put the video on the website. We're going to have it on local TV. This is also my opportunity to pitch to the community. We're always looking for new members of our Sustainability Committee. So if you're interested, please get in touch with Debbie at the town or myself. We'd love to have you join us. And Ron, again, thank you for being here.
Thanks so much.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Thanks, everybody.